before that, David, we have some good news out of the Make Howard Schultz Sweat department.
Yeah, Matt. I mean, Starbucks unionization story, man, it really just continues to inspire. Every day, it feels like there's another set of shops announcing that they're going to be holding a big unionization vote. That they've been that not only are they announced that they'll be holding a union vote, that we've just been getting announcements from place to place across the country that they're showing up and winning. I think a couple of days ago, I don't know what the final tally is up of right now. So far, they're 6-1 in victory over defeat across the country, which is just unbelievable in any context, but especially in a company like Starbucks that is so known for being a very anti-union shop. And in Mesa, Arizona, I believe it was 25-3, despite an extremely odious anti-union campaign. We'll talk a little bit about Mr. Howard Schultz later. But that company really has set up protocols within itself, to prevent any kind of workers' democracy from forming on the shop floor there. The really big news that everybody's excited about right now is that in a unanimous vote um, at the in Seattle, where the company started, that one of their locations in Seattle will now be the first in Seattle to be a unionized shop. And we have this video here of them celebrating as they got the announcement. So yeah, I mean, this movement has really shown itself to be, moving from strength to strength. The NLRB has also refused Starbucks' attempt to clump together different stores. Now, remember, folks, that in the next couple of days we're going to be getting information as to the results of what's happening in Bessemer, Alabama, where there is now a second vote, going on there after Amazon, another company from up there. Broke the law and was preventing people from being able to express their democratic right. But if people remember in the Bessemer case, one of the strategy and tactics that Amazon uses is that they continue to try to expand the amount of people who would be voting in the election. And the reason they do that is not because they're trying to, bring more people into the democratic process. It's because they understand that that's a higher hurdle to reach. So the NLRB in Starbucks' case has refused the company's attempt to clump together different stores, right? And you can imagine how much of a disaster that would be if all the people in Arizona had to be coordinating statewide, right? When there's no real resources or sort of organic community that has developed there. So that's a huge victory there. And not only has Starbucks lost that NLRB ruling, their losses are spreading, not just to the NLRB, but to the courtroom as well. Starbucks hired one of these really, really nasty but prestigious law firms called Littler Mendelson, which is a very notorious union-busting law firm. Starbucks, I believe, hired as much as 30 people from that law firm to come and help them fight the union process, which is a huge number if you're not familiar with how large those teams typically are. But even this law firm that is wicked, but they're successful typically, they are not having success in the courtroom, which really shows just how much momentum has been behind this campaign. Starbucks, despite these setbacks, Starbucks has been retaliating in full force. We've talked about this a lot on the show, but people need to be aware of this so we could find the best ways to show solidarity and make sure that this company knows that people are watching. Some of the things that have been happening that Starbucks has been doing to try to stifle the unionization efforts has been changing the hourly work requirements. So basically, they're firing longtime employees because they've created new artificial hourly thresholds to be considered an employee at Starbucks. And remember, this is a company that really presents itself as a place where, you can go to school, you can work a second job, you can, care for a child. You don't have to have an expectation to work here 40 hours a week. Starbucks has completely evaporated that, very much so with the intention of being able to fire unions. So this is a piece in More Perfect Union about this lawsuit or this filing with the NLRB that has been put forward by the Starbucks Workers United Union. Um, and let's just be clear on this hourly thing, because I think this is one of those PR things that Starbucks is really trying to utilize. There's no divine kind of law here. There's no kind of divine economic law that Starbucks is using. This is a deliberate choice to try to isolate and intimidate people who are wanting to pursue their right to be in a union. Starbucks also fired organizers for other nonsense, like showing up to work too early, right? Like let that sit in for a second. People are showing up to work before the shop technically opens and are sort of waiting there for it, right? Very, very rarely in American capitalism do you get, fired for being too punctual. Um, they're firing people for standing behind the counter to collect their belongings at the end of the day and not wearing an apron. Um, Someone in the chat on the Griscom stream yesterday noted that some of the workers have been noticing these trends, and they've started to do things. They've noted that Starbucks has also started getting very strict about uniforms. So people have
Mm.
started to stash extra uniforms at work, so that if anybody, might be, if there's a Starbucks official showing up, people know that they have an extra shirt or something like that to make sure that they don't get, fired or harassed by this company, because they're looking for everything that they have. And I don't think we have to say this too much to people who watch this show, but if you've ever worked service industry or retail, you get hired, they give you this big ass book of rules and regulation that nobody follows, certainly not management. But these are used as a pretense when it's helpful for them to be able to fire people.
Yeah, when it's time to cull the herd a little bit. I'd be curious, folks, working retail, because that's what I've been hearing too. Is now is what you hear about, like the labor shortage and people don't want to go to work, but I'm also hearing about way under staffing and
Hmm.
leaning on the people who are showing up to work, and like squeezing your employees basically. So yeah.
No, I mean, and we covered what was happening in Memphis, where they fired organizers there. We supported the GoFundMe campaigns to make sure that those people were taken care of. But Starbucks is very threatened by the successful movement. And the point is that they're threatened because this has been so successful. And I think it's important to note the tactics that they're using, so that we as a community, can be finding ways to combat it. And also, really, Starbucks is a company that cares a lot about its image. It has always been a company that has tried to present itself as a kind of progressive, nice, eco-friendly corporation. So this stuff really does matter to them. And remember too, like the kind of arbitrary stuff, this is why we do this. Like, this is what this fight is about. This is the dictatorship of the bosses. Remember, the importance of being a union, it's not solely just for higher wages, though that's really damn important. It's being in a union is about being able to demand dignity and democracy, so that people are not subjected to this kind of nonsense, right? Because at the end of the day, the things that they're letting people go for have nothing to do with the bottom line or the way that those shops are run efficiently. It's all about being able to target people who want to end the dictatorship of this corporation over their lives, and rather and create a kind of democracy on the shop floor. I just wanted to read a little bit from that filing, about what they've been doing, particularly with the hours cut. This is from the More Perfect Union. These hour cuts are in swift response to workplace organizing campaigns at Starbucks stores around the country, wrote the union, which has organized more than 130 stores across 27 states in its formal complaint. The complaint asked for an immediate injunction against the ongoing hour reductions and called for immediate halt on this practice. And on average, the people who've been surveyed here, people are losing like 2 to 15 hours a week at work, which is significant. They interviewed in that piece for a More Perfect Union, a pro-union barista named Sophia Lugo, who saw her hours slashed from up to 21 hours per week down to 5.5 hours. This is in despite Sophia offering all day availability 6 days per week, right? If anything shows you that this has nothing to do with just the kind of culling and management of the business cycle, and everything to do with targeting people who they are, noting are in, partaking in pro union activities, that's a clear as hell example for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, go ahead. Sorry, Matt.
I just wanted to make one point about the dictatorship of the bosses, and that is it's one of the things we talked about with Peter Limbaugh in the early
Mm,
interview on the show. Is when you talk about enclosure by capitalists in the past like 300, 400 years, it's not just land that they parceled off, but also your workplace. Like that was like the
Hmm.
big innovation of the factories is you got people instead of producing at home under conditions like more under their control, frankly. Now you're back into the factory, and like maintaining that is hugely important, and supporting people fighting against that is also like central to all
No,
this.
absolutely. And people should check out at this point. There's more than likely a store in your area that is unionizing. So it's worthwhile to go and show your support to them if you know that there are actions. I
Hmm.
know, for example, here in Austin, I think there's going to be a solidarity rally tomorrow afternoon, which will be Thursday, the 24th, with the location downtown that is unionizing. They're sweating. They're sweating big time about this. And they're sweating so much they've brought back the big boy. Um, Former presidential candidate Howard Schultz.
In the Democratic Party, just to point that out for
Yeah, that's
history.
very important too. Yeah, who decided to save himself the embarrassment of receiving zero votes, dropped out before any votes were cast,
Right.
has exited his retirement to come back to the Starbucks Corporation on a temporary basis. And for people who aren't particularly familiar with Howard Schultz, this is somebody who is extremely anti-union. Throughout their career, there's been multiple attempts at Starbucks to try to break unions. This has by far been the most successful and historic one. I think the tactics that he wants to use won't be successful here. Remember, this is somebody who does have a lot of political relationships with people. Um, when Obama was president, there was a big push to make it easier for people to join a union, and Howard Schultz was one of the lead lobbyists to Barack Obama. To try to kill it, which he was successful in doing. Do we have any of those clips of Howard Schultz kind of incredible oratory skills, or should we just go
Yeah,
to yeah?
I do have it. So this is we got
This
this
is the kind
clip
of shit
from.
that's not working.
It's shocking, really. Like you think that I mean, really, like billionaire denoting competence. Really, that's taken a hit in the social media age because yeah, this um, uh, um, Monday morning or Means TV has this up here. Here's just a
When
little taste.
people in Germany and in Poland were sent to the concentration camps, they were thrown into rail cars, and sometimes the journey was 8 hours, 10 hours, 15 hours, no light, no water, no food. And when they arrived at the camps, the rail cars were slammed open, and you could hear that metal door just right against the cold weather. Men were separated from women, and women were separated from children. And one person for every 6 was given a blanket. One blanket for every 6 people. And the person who got the blanket had to decide what to do with this blanket that I have for myself. And not everyone, but most people shared their blanket with 5 other people. And the rabbi says to me, take your blanket and go share it with 5 other people. And so much of that story is threaded into what we have tried to do at Starbucks, is share our blanket.
Lord help us all. I mean, that's something else, and it should be noted. That video is from a little while ago, and that rousing speech actually convinced people that what they should do is join together as a community and form a union.
I mean, look, we've talked. I mean, in lots of contexts, I think people are aware of like the use of the memory of the Holocaust for
Hmm.
purposes like, say, an interventionist foreign policy, which that is a connection that's frankly a lot clearer more clearly drawn, even if problematic. This one of uh, just that horrible story, and then don't support a union with your fellow comrades. Like I don't know why you're invoking this memory right now.
I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, like it could be to our advantage though to have Howard Schultz going across the
get
country.
him out there. Exactly.
Yeah, get him out and get him
it's
out.
like
I want him to talk to every single person who wants to join a union for
he's
Starbucks.
like the Russell, like, you know how Russell Westbrook is kind of like too much of a liability. It's like,
Yeah.
keep throwing him out there if you want the Lakers to lose. Like, please start Howard Schultz.
But one of our heroes, and he's somebody who brought us all together, Bernie Sanders, welcomed Howard Schultz back. And we have this letter here. I think it's very perfect. It's very much Bernie Sanders. We missed the days when we were just getting these, every day. But Bernie Sanders' response to Howard Schultz return to Starbucks is pretty good. If you want to pull up the letter, we can just read the first bit of it. Or can you read it?
I can read it. Yeah.
Okay.
I can maybe make it a little bit bigger. No, this is one of those things I can't make bigger. But basically it says, as you prepared, dear Mr. Schultz, I'm not going to do Bernie. As you prepare to head back, I do want to though. It's really hard not to. Into your former role as Starbucks CEO, I'm writing you with a simple request. Please respect the Constitution of the United States and do not illegally hamper the efforts of your employees to unionize. Like all workers in America, Starbucks employees have the right to form a union and collectively bargain for decent wages and benefits, safe working conditions, and reliable schedules. As you know, since Starbucks workers in Buffalo voted to form a union at 2 coffee shops in December, the movement to unionize Starbucks is spreading like wildfire. To date, workers have successfully voted to form unions. I'll just note that's what they call the prairie fire, the North Dakotan populace spreading like wildfire. So I do like that metaphor. To date, and I'm sure that's been used many, many other times. To date, workers have successfully voted to form unions at 6 Starbucks locations. Further, employees at more than 140 other Starbucks shops in 27 states have filed petitions with the National Labor Relations Board to hold union elections, which will take place in the coming weeks and months. I mean, this paragraph's good too. Instead of obeying the law, I'm deeply concerned that Starbucks is engaged in a massive union busting campaign led by outgoing CEO Kevin Johnson. Workers have been fired for the crime of being pro-union. Pro-union employees have had their hours sharply reduced. Work schedules have been repeatedly changed. Executives at Starbucks have intimidated and coerced workers into attending captive anti-union meetings. Starbucks has temporarily closed some pro-union shops and threatened to close others, and has hired at least 30 lawyers from Littler Mendelsohn, a notorious anti-union law firm.
Who are losing. I mean, we'll continue to cover the story as it unfolds, because it's probably been one of the most exciting and unique strategies for taking on a corporation like this. Starbucks is completely on the back foot, and it's very lucky for us that the big guns for that company is bringing back Howard Schultz. And I wanted to note, just a couple things with this is that one, this is we should make this very politically rewarding for the NLRB to stand publicly with the union, because
Yes.
that support has made a huge difference already. We have to, if we don't have those conditions, we have to organize through it. But it's something that's worth making it very, very politically beneficial. For people. So it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile to reinforce that. We think this is a good thing for the NLRB to be doing this, and in fact, we think they should be doing a hell of a lot more. And also, remember that everybody can do this. And it takes a lot of work and strategizing. But 2 years ago, people would have thought would be completely insane to organize at a Starbucks location. People are employed at too short of hours. People cycle in and out, all those kind of things. It's never easy, but being able to understand your local conditions and finding ways to build something, that's the only way that we're going to, change this thing. Like, we can't just sit and say like, well, it's hard, so we can't do it. So, that, and also for us on the outside, this is a really important time to show up for folks, because people have sacrificed a lot. Because for all of these wins, there have been people who have been targeted and have lost their jobs. And Starbucks should never be forgiven for that. And us as a larger kind of left-wing community should be out there showing support for folks, however we can, who are making those sacrifices for their comrades, friends, and coworkers.
Absolutely.